Hello, everyone. Happy Monday for the Monday Lunchtime Digest of July 7th, 2025. Happy Monday, Haley.
Happy Monday, Micah.
Hey, we have a couple of really interesting stories to talk about today. So, first up is talking about the Oklahoma Senate interim studies. And so, if you're not aware, the Oklahoma legislators are out of session right now, but in between sessions, they do something called interim studies, which just allows them to study particular issues, meet with experts, meet with people in the general public, stakeholders, to find out more information about issues that they may want to legislate on during the next session. And so, uh, recently published an article on OCI talking about the the legislative interim studies from the Senate that was approved just last week, and some of the ones that may be of interest to mental health professionals. And so, one of the ones that may be of most interest to mental health professionals is one that was proposed by Senator Adam Pugh, and it is study 25-077, which is a study to is studying the consolidation of Oklahoma medical boards. And so that's all that was in the description. So nothing more than that. So we don't know within that study if the scope is going to be Oklahoma Board of Behavioral Health, the Oklahoma Board of Licensed Social Workers, Drug and Alcohol Board, if it's going to be the Psychological Board. We don't know the scope of study within that, but that was the description that was approved to be studied during this interim study session. So we've heard Adam Pugh's name before, haven't we, Haley?
Yes, we have.
Yeah.
So psilocybin study, yes.
So he is the senator from Edmonton. And if you have listened to the last couple of Monday Lunchtime Digests and heard about the Oklahoma Board of Behavioral Health, where the sunset bill that was up to be able to keep the Oklahoma Board of Behavioral Health going, where it was on the agenda, and then it was taken off by Representative Mike Osborne. Mm-hmm. And Haley had a chance to interview him about a month or so ago, and found out that there was a disagreement between the University of Central Oklahoma and the Oklahoma Board of Behavioral Health. So he was advocating trying to get the Oklahoma Board of Behavioral Health and the University of Central Oklahoma talking again. And I know you asked him point blank where the breakdown in communication was, and he wasn't really sure where the breakdown in communication was. But apparently he and then also Senator Pugh were the ones that were, according to him, trying to contact Oklahoma Board of Behavioral Health to have them sit down with the University of Central Oklahoma. So that was kind of all of that that went on in the background. So now it's kind of interesting that now an interim study is to look at the consolidation of boards from from Senator Pugh. So this is something that the idea of not having as many independent boards is something that isn't just an Oklahoma issue, but is a national thing. And I'm sure that it's been looked at throughout history. But when doing my research, whenever I was looking at this idea of consolidating boards, I actually found a big study that was done by the Obama administration that was looking at consolidating boards, saying that there may be too many licenses, not just talking about mental health professionals, but you know how you have licensed plumbers and licensed electricians and that there may be too many licenses among professionals, and that there may be too many independent boards, and explored this idea of consolidating boards. So even the Obama administration was looking at that. And then with the current political climate of this idea of really, trying to look at how the government is spending money and things like that, where it may be that the current people in the legislators, the Senate, are looking at how they can consolidate medical boards. So anyway, I just found that really, really interesting. So what are your thoughts there, Haley?
Well, so when it comes to consolidating boards, I can see where logistically it might be a bit easier just renewing all under one place. I know that other states do that. They have maybe a board, a professional licensure. However, there are a lot of nuances between the licenses. And so I think, if we are considering consolidating boards, and like you said, consolidating licenses, well, what will that consolidation look like? Because even if we think about the licensed marriage and family therapist versus, licensed professional counselors, there's very different regulations for becoming that licensed professional, even though they're under the same board. And so I think that, if we are looking at consolidating licenses, we need to have members of all represented parties who are involved in looking at what that license is going to look like. And if we're looking at consolidating them under boards, making sure that boards are represented by those who have that license type. Because if it's all under one board, and I'm a licensed professional counselor and I'm being called to the board because there's been a complaint, I want somebody who is also a licensed professional counselor to also be on that board. Not that it has to be all licensed professional counselors, because of course, even with our board, there are representatives from all three license types, as well as community members who are on the board and help with that decision making. We want professionals and non-professionals. But if we are going to consolidate that, then I think we really need to look at, how is that representation still going to be on that board? Are there going to be subcommittees that are really making those decisions? Are there going to be certain allotment of representatives? Because even if it is like there's an allotment for mental health, let's say that licensed mental health professionals are governed by this board and there's allotment for a mental health chair. Well, if a psychologist is making a decision for an LPC, they're not really going to have as much of an understanding. Or if an LPC is making a decision for a psychologist, I mean, they're very different careers. And so it could be that the representation isn't helpful if it's not represented by someone who aligns with that license type. So that's just my opinion for whatever that's worth. I think that logistically combining these boards is going to be a lot more challenging if we're going to, have them regulated fairly. But we'll just see what comes into play.
Yeah, and so the places where the states where there have been where the boards are not independent. So you think of this board, whatever they call it, the board of, we'll call it Board of Health, just to give it a name, Board of Health. And then within that, there may be other quote unquote boards, but they're not independent boards. And so it may be let's say Oklahoma the Board of Counselors, the Board of Psychologists, the Board of, whomever. And they really kind of act more, I think, as you're saying, like a subcommittee. And so they may give recommendations to that higher entity, which, just for example's sake, is Board of Health, that then that higher entity makes decisions based upon the recommendations that they give. And so we may still have like an Oklahoma Board of Behavioral Health. That's the name, but it's no longer an independent board. It's underneath this other entity. And as you pointed out, this other entity, the Board of Health, as I said, just giving it a name, it may consist of all different types of people. So it may have on there chiropractors. It may have on there medical doctors. It may have on there, I don't know, nurses. Who knows, maybe on there, but it's not going to be just counselors that are on that higher entity board. And so usually they take the recommendation from their subcommittee or the not independent board, but they don't have to. And so would a psychologist that maybe had a complaint against them want a chiropractor that is determining the state of their license? And so whereas the proponents for it say, hey, this helps to get rid of the bureaucracy and things like that, whereas the people that are not for that want independent boards say, well, actually it adds another layer of bureaucracy, because now in order for decisions to get made, it has to go up a couple more levels rather than the hierarchy being a little flatter in trying to make those decisions. So a lot to unpack there, but that is possibly something that they're going to be looking at in this independent study. And when I say possibly, in the description, it says Oklahoma medical boards, but don't know for sure if they're talking about Oklahoma Board of Behavioral Health, social workers, psychologists, who all they're talking about that. But we'll reach out to Senator Pugh to see if he can give us an idea of if the Oklahoma Board of Behavioral Health and the other mental health boards are going to be part of that scope. investigation. So right now, we kind of have our OCI legislative warning system, and so right now we consider this to be a yellow threat, and so the action or the recommendations for that is just to contact legislatures to clarify information, to stay informed, and then to guard against misinformation. So we want to make sure that people understand we're not saying that Oklahoma licensed professional counselors that license is going away. There's no talk about eliminating that license. There's no talk about eliminating any of the other licensed marriage and family therapists. No one's talking about eliminating those. It's not impossible to eliminate those licenses, but that would require a law to be passed that would negate the law that gave LPCs existence, in the beginning. So we're not talking about anyone losing a license or anything like that. We're just talking about board structure. If the board is going to continue to be independent as it is right now, or if it's going to be under a larger entity, as it is in 21 other states. There's 21 other states approximately where the mental health LPCs, they may not be called LPCs in that state, but the professional counselors do not have an independent board, and their board, if we want to call it that, is underneath a larger entity. So we'll just have to see what direction Oklahoma ends up going in. So I would encourage people to contact their legislators and just say, hey, do you know about this independent study? And do you know of Oklahoma Board of Behavioral Health? Or if you're a social worker, Oklahoma Board of Social Work is going to be part of the scope of study. And post it in the comment section and let us know, hey, you talked to this representative or that senator, probably a senator would be best since this is in the Senate, on the Senate side, and they said yes or no, or they'd find out. We'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely.
Yes, so more to come. We will contact Senator Pugh and see what he has to say. But Hayley, what types of studies do you have that you've seen?
So recently I came across a study in the Mental Health of Nursing Journal, or Journal of Mental Health Nursing. And it was basically a meta review of many different studies that examined the effect of hobbies on mental health. And so I'm sure, we all know that, having a hobby like that can be a form of socialization for some folks. There's mental health benefits there. If we have an active hobby such as running or exercising, there will be mental health effects and physical health effects there. Behavior activation can be a significant part of hobbies. If we have a hobby that we enjoy and we're feeling depressed and we do that hobby for even a few minutes, it can have positive mental health effects. But what the study did is it looked even deeper at the effect that hobbies might have on mental health. And one of the studies that it really examined was a 12-year longitudinal study on older adults. And I believe they looked at about 3,000 to 4,000 older adults in the study over 12 years. And they looked at older adults who were depressed versus older adults who were not depressed. And what they found is that older adults who were depressed over 12 years, if they had a hobby, they had a 272% increased likelihood of recovering from depression symptoms. And those older adults who had no depression but had a hobby had a 32% less likelihood of developing depression at all over those 12 years. And this study, it looked at mental health effects not only for depression but also for other mental health effects such as problematic gambling. What they found is that those folks who had a hobby, who regularly participated in their hobby, they showed that they had a reduced time in engaging in problematic gaming and problematic gambling as well. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of different reasons for that. The more time you're spending on your hobby, the less time you have for or other things. But what the study recommended at the end, because all studies have like that recommendations for further research, or how will this implement, or how should this be implemented in policy or whatnot. And so what this study really suggested is that those of us who work in medicine or mental health to really consider encouraging our clients or our patients to connect with a hobby as a part of mental health treatment, because hobbies have shown over many, many studies and over many, many years to have such a significant impact on mental health, whether that is the active or passive hobby. So active being like exercise, passive being like art, whether it is a hobby you do by yourself or with others, that there are many different ways that hobbies can provide protective factors for mental health, as well as what they're suggesting, really aid in improving mental health. And so it's just a really fascinating and encouraging study too. And like I said, it wasn't just like, oh, you need to sew or you need to garden. It's like, no, having a hobby in general, something to spend your idle time on, can be a helpful protective factor for mental health.
Yeah, fantastic. And if I don't know how you would define hobby, but if it's work that we enjoy, just for enjoyment's sake, if that maybe is one way to define a hobby, then it reminds me of a quote by Voltaire, which is the philosopher, which this is going to make me sound a lot smarter than what I actually am because I don't know a lot of philosophy, but I remember this one. So Voltaire said that work is beneficial because it helps stave off loneliness, despair, and vice. And so certainly that's true. As you just said, whenever people are doing hobbies, then they're less likely to be depressed. They may have more socialization, and then also, may help not to fall into substance abuse or gambling or other problematic behaviors because they have this other thing that they're interested in doing that brings them some enjoyment.
Absolutely. And, it can be also, an outlet that helps us to connect to our values or our passions. It's like, I can think about even in my life, like working jobs where not necessarily that they went against my values, but I wasn't necessarily passionate about it. I was not passionate about being a bank teller, but, it helped me to pay my bills. It was a good, healthy work environment. I wasn't upset being there, but it wasn't something that necessarily connected me to my values. And I was really excited to go to work to be a bank teller. And so if we have a job, like we might have a job that aligns with our values that we get a lot of fulfillment in, and that's awesome. But, especially if we have a job where maybe we don't feel as connected to our values, don't feel as passionate, having an outlet can be a way for us to connect to those values or to that creativity or to those other positive mental health effects, that good socialization. And in fact, in the study, so the study looks at about 12 different studies, breaks them all down. And another part of the study was encouraging workplaces to promote hobbies outside of work. And what they found was that those workplaces that did so, their employees had a significantly less likely to burn out. And so they really encouraged that, building in hobbies or allotting time for hobbies, allotting resources for hobbies, allotting employees a space to really be able to do their hobbies, just making that hobbies discussion or hobbies outlet part of work was really helpful, not only for the employees' well-being, but for preventing burnout in general too.
Fantastic. Well, and I think this is a good segue to talk a little bit about what we do here at Evan Counseling Professional Development, which is Smart Recovery. And so the reason why I say it's a good segue is in Smart Recovery, there's something called a vital absorbing self-interest. And that comes from rational emotive behavior therapy, which a lot of Smart Recovery is based off of. So if you're not familiar, Smart Recovery is a non-12-step peer support group for people that are dealing with addiction of some sort. So it can be a substance abuse, or it can be also a process addiction such as gambling or pornography or things like that. So we are the longest running Smart Recovery group in Oklahoma. You can learn more about that at smartedmond.com. And then we also have our family and friends group, which started recently, which is Smart Recovery's response to Al-Anon. And so it is for obviously family and friends that have someone that is dealing with addiction of some sort, for them to get the support they need, as well as empirically based strategies for how they can encourage their family member to seek help, to support them in a journey towards sobriety. So it's how to try to encourage that without nagging, without being critical and yelling and all that other stuff. So encourage you to check out Smart Recovery or Smart Family and Friends, and you can do that at smartedmond.com. Also, we recently had our Whimsical Wednesday. So when you talk about some hobbies and having fun outside of work, so if you're not familiar, Whimsical Wednesday is something that we started a couple of months ago, which obviously happens on a Wednesday. It happens on the first Wednesday of the month, where we get together with other mental health professionals just to hang out. So if we want to call it networking, we can, but it's really just a way just to spend time with other mental health professionals, reconnect with old friends, make new ones, and just have fun. And so at this last one that we had just this last Wednesday, last week, was at Flashback Retro Pub.
Yes, and so we had a arcade game tournament, and as I predicted, I did not win. Our good friend Paige with Oasis here in Edmond, she was our winner, and uh, she won a prize. I forgot what she won, Micah, but she won a prize that night.
So she is not a licensed mental health professional. So we could not give her continuing education as our typical prize because she doesn't need continuing education. Right. So instead she got a cash prize. So that's Yay. What she got. Yeah, that's what she got that night. But yeah, she ended up beating me on skeet ball, unfortunately. Yeah, so I did okay on the 80s style video games, but skeet ball was not my thing, and she beat me on skeet ball. So congratulations to Paige. We had great fun doing that. And then we have another Whimsical Wednesday coming up this next month, which is August. Do you know what day that falls on?
6th.
August 6th. So on August 6th, where's our Whimsical Wednesday going to be on August 6th, Hayley?
The study. It'll be at the study. It's going to be a jazz night. So the jazz night goes from 4 to 10, but we're going to be there from 5:30 to 7. And Micah, you said it is free to attend. Is that right?
That is what I have found. The information has been given to me that it's free to attend. And of course, if you want to, it's a little wine bar. I think they have like cheeses and other bougie stuff there. But if you want to partake in any of that stuff, then obviously that's on you. That it's buy your own stuff. But we will be there at 5:30 till 7 and just hanging out, playing a fun game so people will have a chance to win continuing education, and then also just hanging out and connecting with each other.
Yes, and so join us again. That is Wednesday, August 6th. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to send us an email, hello@edmondcounseling.com, or shoot me a text, 405-440-3034. No need to RSVP, though you can let us know that you're coming so we can look out for you. But just feel free to show up on that day, and we'll see you then.
Yeah, so we'd love to see you there at the study, and it is here in Oklahoma City on Sheridan. You'll see more advertisements and information for that coming up. So I hope to see you there. And then we don't have any workshops right now. We're kind of taking a break from workshops, but we do have our on-demand courses that I know people are still getting. So people are getting ahead of their continuing education for next year and taking advantage of all of our board-approved on-demand courses.
Absolutely. So we've just added 3 more courses. Should be adding 3 more later this week. And so our catalog is full to the brim with new and exciting courses. And so go to counselinginstitute.org to find our full on-demand course catalog today.
Ah, fantastic. And Hayley, do we have a winner for this week's drawing?
We do. Our winner is our old friend, Paul Emmerich.
Hey, congratulations, Paul. So Paul has won free continuing education. Is that right?
Yes. So Paul, send us an email, hello@edmondcounseling.com, or shoot us a text, and we will get that course added to your profile. And so if you'd like to be like Paul, you can do one of 3 or all 3 things. You can like this post, you can share this post, or you can comment your answer to today's question. Every time you do one of those 3 things, not only do you help us grow, you help us be seen by others, we also get entered into the drawing for next week's prize, which is free continuing education from our on-demand catalog. And so that being said, after you've liked and shared this post, answer today's question. Our question today is, being that hobbies are so beneficial for our mental health and well-being, what is a hobby you're currently engaged in? So, Micah, I'll ask you first. What's a hobby?
Oh, man. You know, my first response is, what's a hobby? Because if laying around and watching, comedies from 20 years ago, then that is my favorite hobby to do, at least in the evenings, to kind of decompress. I love work so much. I really enjoy what I do and things like that. So that takes up a fair amount of time. So I will say exercise, even though it's not as much a hobby as I should be doing. But I will say exercise, trying to get out, walk, and do a little bit of exercising. So Hayley, how about you? What's a hobby that you're enjoying right now?
Oh, you know me, I have like 50 hobbies going at all times, Micah.
I know. I'm wondering if you're going to say the one that I think you're going to say. So,
Which one do you think I'm going to say?
brushing up on your Spanish. That's the one that I
Yes.
thought you were going to say.
Yeah, I've been doing Spanish with my friend Steven. So, friend of OCI, Steven. He's won many of our courses too, but we've been meeting on Fridays to practice Spanish. And so that's been really fun and enjoyable. And my brain hurts a lot because I haven't used it regularly in about a decade. And so trying to brush off the rust and get back to speaking it. So he can understand me sometimes and I can understand him. So I think we're on the right track.
Oh, well, good. Well, we'd love to hear from you. What hobbies are you currently enjoying? I know a couple of our people up here at Edmond Counseling enjoy gardening, and then sports, watching sports, following sports, film. We have several hobbies that people enjoy up here. We'd love to hear yours. So, what is your hobby that you enjoy? Or if you're like me, what's a hobby and need to maybe diversify your interest a little bit? You can put that in there too. And anytime, as Hayley already said, anytime that you comment, you like or share this post, you'll be entered into the win the drawing for next week.
Yeah, so thank you all so much for your support and thank you for watching today.
Thank you guys so much. And as always, anytime you tell a colleague about us, you like a post, you share a post, you attend a on-demand course or live webinar or in-person workshop, then you are helping to support the mission of providing quality continuing education in Oklahoma. And we thank you guys so much for that. So everyone have a good week and we will see you next week.
Take care.
Bye, everyone.